Hi, I'm Meredith Blackwell, and I'm here at IMC 12 in Maastricht, Netherlands. And it's 9:01 on the 12th of August, 2024. And I'm here to talk to Rachel Koch, who is a fairly recent PhD postdoc and in her early career. So we're going to talk to her about that. Rachel, where were you born? Start at the beginning.
Okay. I was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota. It's about 60 miles north of Minneapolis.
And was your family mycologically
Oh,
involved?
heck no. No, my dad was a lawyer and my mom was a secretary, and I got interested in the outdoors through my friends who I met. So mostly in high school, I decided I liked the outdoors. We were never a camping family. We were a history family. My claim to fame is I've seen every American president's grave from my dad. That's where we went on our family vacations. So I know, Meredith, you're shaking your head.
That's a first. I've never heard of anyone who had that record.
Yeah. So I think history was probably more where my impressions were, but my friends led me to nature, and then that's when I went to do biology in undergrad. And I fell in love with evolution. And then when I was wanting to go to grad school to study evolution, I didn't care what I studied it in. I just wanted to study it. And I didn't actually apply to any mycology labs. But I applied to the biology department at LSU, at Louisiana State. And I didn't know there were several renowned mycologists there at the time. And one of them in the plant pathology and crop physiology department found my application. And that's how it all went to the mycology direction.
Oh, well, good. We're glad you came.
I am too. It changed my life.
And I should comment that I've known you for a number of years since you came to LSU because I was there then, although you worked in a different department. So tell me about how you came to be a plant pathologist.
So when I studied with Kathy Aim at LSU and then Purdue, I was working definitely more on the fungal biology side, so tropical biodiversity. But Kathy, on one of our first field trips to Guyana, told me, she's like, no one is ever going to hire you to study this fungus. Like, this fungus is probably, you're going to be done studying it after your PhD. This is Guyana gaster, yeah. So it's this really cool sequestrate fungus that's only found in Guyana. She's like, but you're going to develop tools that are going to help you to get your job. And so basically what I did in grad school and postdoc was just develop a toolkit, and that toolkit translates nicely into plant pathology. And so it's been a very seamless transition, I guess. I've taken a lot of classes, but it's a diverse toolkit of genomics and population genomics and transcriptomics, and then a really good foundation in fungal biology.
Yeah, and so you kind of had a split career because you started out at LSU and then Kathy moved?
Kathy moved.
And you followed her to
And
Purdue.
we went to Purdue, yeah.
And do you know why she went to Purdue?
Kathy went to Purdue to take over as the director of the Arthur and the Kriebel herbaria there. So the Arthur is the largest collection of rust fungi, and they had been without a curator for many, many years, and Kathy was, of course, the obvious choice, being the renowned rust expert that she is.
Yeah. So after you finished with Kathy, and you had several trips to Guyana.
Yes.
And did you go to Africa with her,
Yeah,
too?
I went to Africa twice, once with Kathy, once on my own.
Yeah. How can you compare the fungi in Guyana and Africa?
Well, I think the ones in Guyana were really special just because, I mean, obviously all fungi are special, but the ones in Guyana were really special because it was the first time, mycologists have ever really looked at them in that area. Even though Kathy had been working there for many, many years prior, it's still, all of those fungi had a story with them, how they came to know them over a decade that they had been going before I even came on the scene. Whereas the ones in Africa had been worked on prior. There's a pretty rich mycological history of exploring the tropical rainforests in Africa.
Were they different taxonomically, or did you find some of the same groups with different species? Or?
Yeah, so we would find a lot of the same groups. So like lots of amanitas, lots of boletes. So it was all, we were looking at ectomycorrhizal fungi. So a lot of similar groups, but there were some distinct differences, but I'm drawing a blank really where some of them are.
You didn't find Guyana-gaster.
No. I thought we would, but we didn't. But yeah.
So with Guyana-gaster, you also had the opportunity to be interested in fungi that are associated with insects.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, so of course, you're the person who really developed the insect fungal. Yeah, so I read all your books my first year in grad school. And then, but they were, so Kathy and Terry found this, so it's a sequestrate fungus. And
Which means a puffball.
Yeah, it's like a puffball, but it was really hard, so it was like a truffle. And it was partially in the ground, so you could see it from the top. So it wasn't just like a true truffle, a tuber that was underground. And the thing is hard as a rock too. But so you're like, how does this thing disperse its spores? So puffballs get softer and fluffier over time, and the spores are easily spread through the wind. And then these truffles eventually start, producing these odors. And Guyana-gaster never did that, and so it's like, bleh. And then when they sequenced it with, multiple loci, they're getting hits back to Armillaria. And this is crazy because Armillaria is of course, the humongous fungus genus. There's no record of a sequestrate fungus in this area, in this genus. And so it's like, they thought they had a contaminant. But no, they kept doing it, and it kept coming back Armillaria. So they finally were convinced that it was close to Armillaria, but no idea how these spores dispersed. But then one day they come across a really mature fruiting body, and it's full of termites. And so they stuck it in of the local, it's called high wine, so it's just 100% ethanol. They stuck it in that with the termites and came up with this hypothesis that maybe termites are responsible because we're in the tropics. There's termites everywhere. And so I think I went to Guyana, 6, 7, 8 times, I don't remember, just to keep looking for this. And I eventually kept finding termites associated with this fungus. And if they weren't even associated with the fruiting body, they could have been associated with the decaying roots that the fruiting body was next to. And so then what we think happens, we were eventually able to show that the fungus houses nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Termites eat decaying wood. Decaying wood is notoriously low in nitrogen. So we think that the fruiting body, or the data show and support this hypothesis, that the fruiting body is enriched in nitrogen, and so it was able to help supplement their diet. Termites do seek out nitrogen-rich sources of food, so this isn't totally unheard of.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's probably too much. Hopefully that didn't get too overboard.
Hey, no,
there.
that's an unusual fungus, so
It
it's
is.
nice to hear about it. Okay, so then I want to ask you, you went on from your PhD to a postdoc.
Yes.
And I remember reading a really great paper you did on fungal parasites of other fungi,
Yes.
mycoparasites.
Yes, so I was working with Josh Herr at the University of Nebraska, and he collected, Armillaria, the Armillarian entoloma one, that's the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he collected at some point, so there's Armillaria species, gosh, now I'm already getting confused about it. Who parasitized who?
Well, it doesn't matter though.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so he collected this. Organism of one fungus parasitizing another fungus, and they're both mushroom forming. Threw it in the -80, and so then what we did is we sequenced the transcriptomes of them all, and so then we were able to start teasing apart genes that were important for mycoparasitism in this interaction. And you don't typically think of mushrooms really as being mycoparasites.
Yeah.
That's something more in the Ascomycota, I would think.
And Eukaryolean things.
Yeah. So that was a really fun project to work on, and then it also helped expand the toolkit even a little bit more to transcriptomics.
And then I want to talk to you about something personal, because you're unusual, because you have a career in mycology, but you also have a family life.
Yes.
And lots of stuff to do at home.
Yes.
So why don't we talk about your career and how all that meshes with your family?
Meredith, you raised a daughter too throughout your career. I'm lucky, so I met my husband in grad school, and like he really quickly learned that my job and my career were important, and he's made a ton of sacrifices, moving with the different jobs, and now we're finally, now that I'm with the USDA in Maryland, we're able to actually plant some roots, or set some roots, or whatever that is, grow roots, I don't know, and he can finally keep a job for more than like 2 years before I'm like, time to go. And then we've both always wanted kids, and so we had our first daughter 15 months ago, and so that's added a whole new level of uncertainty and chaos, but also awesomeness. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to work the next day, if she's sick or not, but it's awesome because now I'm like, I can't wait to like show her, what I do, and that,
And so you're managing.
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
With a little help.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Josh.
And like, I'm here without my family, but we are really supportive parents, and like, neither of them are in Maryland where we are, but they don't mind hopping on a plane to come and help when we, give them some notice and ask. And so then we're able to do this, but I hope in a few years, like, she's able to come and see it too.
Yeah. So let me ask you one more thing. Does the USDA, do they have regulations that help you if you're a new mother, or I just wonder?
So I had great leave. So great leave for the U.S. I was telling people in Canada, and they were like, 3 months, that's nothing. But but for the U.S., that's really good.
It is. That's why I was wondering, because universities usually aren't that generous.
No, exactly. So it was 3 months, and they were like, you don't have to check your email or anything. But, I did. Babies sleep a lot, and after a while, I was able to start getting back into it. And so I was able to keep up with things at work, and I wanted to. I missed it. I enjoy what I do. I love it. And so without it, it felt a little... and so when she'd sleep, I'd catch up on things, and then, you get a lot of sick leave and stuff. So and then there's also telework, that's really, helpful. So, there's still struggles. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but like, a lot of people understand, the struggles with it, and are just like, is the work getting done? And at the end of the day, you say yes. And so it's usually okay.
Yeah. So is it very different working for the government rather than a university, which you've been in university environments most of your career?
And like, I never was a PI at a university, so I feel like I don't know. I feel like government gets a lot of flack for being really a lot of paperwork, and it is. But when I was telling Kathy about it, she's like, oh, she's like, all I do all day is paperwork too. So I think it's quite similar. I am pretty directed towards what I study. So I'm at a foreign disease lab. So we study diseases that are, and pathogens that are foreign to the U.S. So, in some cases that limits it, but also I don't mind it because I'm working with foreign collaborators, and I feel like I was like, kind of like, that's what I did my whole PhD, was work with
so are these
groups.
Invasives?
They're worried about becoming invasive.
Okay, and so where do they pick them up? When they're coming in on a boat, or?
Potentially. So I'm working on one that's peanut smut. So this is, so it's a smut disease that infects peanuts. Right now it's just in Argentina, but it could be spread through, peanuts are Argentina is one of the largest peanut exporters. So if they're not sanitized correctly, countries could get them through seed, it's usually through trade.
Are peanuts native to South America?
Yep, that Argentina, Bolivia region where they all meet. There's 82 peanut species.
Wow, a lot of variety for the fungi to pick.
Yes, yeah. It's a really fascinating crop. And so it's not in the U.S. yet, but I have really awesome collaborators in Argentina. So they send me spores from different peanut varieties, and they're looking in those wild species to see if they can find the fungus in the wild species too. And then I'm able to work on them in a BSL-3 greenhouse, so we can work with them in
the
planta.
whole greenhouse.
Yeah. So we can work with them in planta. So it's a really unique facility that I work at, but it's cool because I get to see fungi that not many other people in the U.S. get to see at this point.
Yeah. So is there some way to get the peanut farmers in Georgia to look at look for? Do you put out notices?
Well, we really need to start. So with peanuts, they'll usually harvest them, and then of course they have this shell around them, and then there's the two seeds that are in them, and then those peanuts are usually sent to shellers. And the shelling facilities will take the shells off of them, and so then you're just left with the seeds. And so really what we need to start doing is telling shellers that they need to start looking for this, because they think that's how it actually spread in Argentina, was through these massive shelling companies. And so that's what we probably should start doing. But there's no indication. We have pretty strict trading regulations with Argentina, so... But, you know, we need to be on the lookout.
It seems like it'd be very difficult to sanitize a ship hull.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
So...
Interesting. So are there other fungi that you're on the lookout for?
Yeah, so the other one I'm working with is red leaf blotch. It causes red leaf blotch of soybean in Africa. Its name is Coniatherium glycine, so it's an ASCO. And so I have a great collaborator who's here. His name is Haroon, and he travels all throughout soybean producing regions of Africa and collects diseased leaves and sends them to me. And so this one's labeled as a select agent. So it is subject to a lot of regulations, but our facility is designed for that basically. So I'm able to culture them, and I'm studying the genomic diversity of these.
Okay, so soybeans are native to Asia.
Yes.
Okay, so is the disease in Asia, or is it?
No, and this is really interesting. So what happened is, or at least I think it's interesting, and none of this has been proven, and it's hard to find people who will do this for me. But what when the fungus and the disease was described in 1957 in Africa, was also described on this wild legume weed that was just in Africa at that point. And so then when they started growing soybean in Africa, when it started really spreading in around the 1950s at that time, they think there was a host jump from the legume weed to soybean.
But within the same plant family.
Yes. Yeah. And so far it's not been found outside of Africa, which is good, because it's pretty virulent, and can decimate, and it produces these sclerotia, which can just persist in the soil for forever, or for a long time.
Okay. Well, you're happy you're a mycologist.
I am. I love mycology. It's such a I don't know, it's just, there's always these possibilities, because everyone's like, is this normal for fungi? And I'm like, I don't know what normal is for fungi. So it's like, there's just, the possibilities are endless.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about that I haven't mentioned?
No, you've gotten it all, but just that it's just been a wonderful career choice. And,
it's really interesting, because I had no idea what you were actually doing. I knew you worked at this USDA lab.
And it's just I don't know. I would have never ever imagined this is where I would have ended up, but it is. And it's just, I guess, to any future people looking for their, permanent job or whatever, just like just be open to everything, because things surprise you, and you're learning so much on the way that you don't even realize.
And your parents accept what you're doing, and I'm sure they're very proud of you.
They love it. They love to tell everybody about it, and I think they're just happy I'm happy, and happy that they've been able to help with it. So,
great.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, this has been a very nice
And you, Meredith, you were a big part of all of this.
Anyway.